we've all been there, sitting alone in your room, trying to magically absorb the term's readings in one night. Your midterm is tomorrow, and you told yourself no more Instagram until chapter 9 is done, but you're only 3/4 done chapter 7. And you're on Instagram again. Whoa, everyone else must be so smart. I mean, how are they on top of their stuff? And like, how are they able to go out and be so on top of their stuff? Don't they have to study too? But then again, you haven't gone to class in a week thinking it'd be more productive for you to stay home and look over your readings yourself, which you would have done if you hadn't spent that whole time catching up on season 5 of Scandal. Definitely worth it. Except now you're kind of regretting that, seeing everyone else who clearly didn't waste their time. So you tell yourself, okay, I know what I have to do now. You sit up straight, decide to focus, and spend one more hour going through all your social media feeds. How are you back here again? Well, we are the social media generation. According to findings from the Pew Research Institute, social media usage has increased by about 1,000% in the past 8 years for the ages 18 to 29. 98% of college-age students use social media, so basically all of us. And on average, we spend about 2 hours a day on these sites. So it's no surprise we find ourselves on these sites over and over again. We're hooked. Marketing professionals spend millions of dollars luring us to use these sites and keeping us on there. They know how to get us to go on these sites and continue going on them. They know what updates to use, like going from favorites and stars on Twitter to now hearts and likes. And they see which ones are successful or not. And the way they do this is through the variable schedule reinforcement paradigm. So basically, sometimes our behavior is rewarded, other times it isn't. Because our behavior is rewarded only sometimes, we are likely to continue with our behavior, hoping that next time we get the reward. The social media equivalent of this is the notification icon. So basically, we see a bright red +1 notification for every interaction that we have, from friend requests to liked photo, et cetera, et cetera. This graph demonstrates that in practice on Facebook. So basically, you first check out your Facebook at 1:15, you have 3 notifications. So you go back to study, spend a little bit of time, come back, 1:27, okay, you have 1 notification. Then you come back again at 1:34, now you have 0. Come back again at 2:03, take a little break from studying, you still have 0. Now you decide, okay, it's been a little while, not much happening on Facebook, so you take a little bit longer to check in the next time. And the next time you do, bingo, you have 2 notifications. Your behavior is finally rewarded. So it's in this way that social media websites encourage us to continuously keep checking in. And because these notifications are unpredictable and variable, they occur from time to time, we don't know when it's going to happen, we're conditioned to stop whatever we're doing and come back and check to see if we have any. Similarly, according to data from Facebook, positive Facebook posts actually elicit more positive Facebook posts. So if you have 1 positive Facebook post on your feed, that's going to elicit someone else to, on average, post 2 more positive Facebook posts, whereas with a negative one, you're only going to have 1 more being elicited. But that's not a huge issue. I mean, we want to see more positive things on our feed anyway, right? Well, it wouldn't be if we already weren't so happy or positive on social media anyway. We're hyper positive. Think about all the content you see on Facebook, Instagram. It's all about the new profile pics, people's job updates, new vacations to exotic locations, funny jokes and statuses. We know what posts people want to see, and we know what posts that are going to get the most attention. And the posts that garner the most likes, shares, and comments are the ones in which we're being, doing, and looking good. We're being, doing positive. It's in this way that we're conditioned to believe that positive equals good, meaning that these positive posts are the ones giving us those comments, shares, likes. Basically, affirmation. And these affirmations are hugely powerful because they actually influence and trigger the pleasure center in our brain. We'll do anything for that little dose of dopamine. Studies even show that being ignored on Facebook is akin to psychological hell. Okay, a bit of an overstatement, but it really does impact your self-esteem and sense of control. it's no surprise we want likes. In this way, society is conditioned to display positivity through sharing their high points and in turn being validated or celebrated for that. We feel validated, and if we want to continue feeling validated, we learn that we must continue posting about the good things in our life and about ourselves. Soon, it doesn't really matter if we're actually doing good or not, as long as we're, letting everyone else know that we are. The need to post positivity is exacerbated in university because of its achievement-oriented context. Here, we are posting not about only our personal highs, but we're also competing with each other for not only grades, but also involvement, extracurriculars, and even our social life. Truth is, most of us know, most of the time, we have no idea what we're doing. But we feel the need to present the best version of ourselves because it impacts our success in the future. And falling behind and posting something negative or being seen in a negative way could mean falling behind in this high-stakes subliminal competition. An interesting observation I've noted is that although we ourselves don't like to post negative things or talk about the low points in our lives, we're more than okay to engage with that, and we're more than sympathetic when it comes from a more socially acceptable source of real stories, not just the glitz and glam like Humans of New York. We appreciate and sympathize with that. We don't really know what to do when it happens to people in our own life or even within our own circle. Like if a guy from our math class posts about his mom dealing with cancer, we're not really used to that, but we're okay with facing these realities if they come from a more socially acceptable source of reality. Humans of New York regularly posts about the people he encounters in everyday life, with most of his posts focusing on the trials and tribulations of everyday people, things that we can all relate to ourselves. And when he's not doing that, he posts pictures of cute kids. This shows to me that we're aware of the realities that everyone faces. We're aware of the fact that everyone has lows. But somehow we feel like we can't post or talk about it ourselves. Truth is, not everyone's doing as well as they seem on social media. What we're seeing is just the tip of the metaphorical iceberg, with the greater, more personal realities looming underneath the surface. We see people's successes, but not the hard work or even the failures that led up to that success. We see everyone's nice photos, but not the millions of selfies that it took to finally get to that one. Everyone seems to be doing really well when you're looking at their highlight reel as opposed to their daily log. In fact, some people aren't doing very well at all. A quarter of all university-age students experience problems with mental health, most commonly stress, anxiety, and depression. 89% of all students admitted to feeling overwhelmed by all that they had to do last year. At UBC alone, 24% of domestic students and 20% of international students felt that anxiety had impacted their work in some way. Many of us are aware of these statistics, but don't realize how our social media use can somehow be related to that. Well, the way this works is that our hyper-positive social media interactions have created a one-sided conversation. So basically, we're displaying and talking about our high points, but forgetting how important it is to realize that low points exist as well. With the issue of mental health, this is particularly troubling because students dealing with problems like that feel like they can't speak up or talk about the issues they're going through because you're supposed to do nothing but talk about the positives. This was the case for Madison Holleran, a 19-year-old freshman at the University of Pennsylvania. Madison was a track star, attractive, and had really good grades. Basically, she fit the bill perfectly for what a successful university student looks like. But personally, she was dealing with issues of depression. These never came to light until on January 17, 2014, she jumped to her own death. 1,100 university students in the US alone commit suicide every year, many of whom share similar stories to Madison. Madison's story illustrates the immense pressure for students to present only the highlights and hide everything else that may ruin the glossy image. As one of Madison's friends put it, Everyone posts pictures of the best time they're having. No one posts pictures of themselves sitting in their rooms crying. Another interesting insight I've noticed about mental health on campus is that often people don't talk, post, or even acknowledge the fact that they had an issue until they're doing well. This is due to the stigma of mental health being compounded by the hyperpositivity of our social interactions, especially on social media. We're not helping to end this stigma by only talking about the success stories and not the experiences and the realities of those who are facing them as it happens. It seems as though we're expected to get better before we can even acknowledge that we had a problem. Even when social media doesn't lead to more serious issues of mental health, the messages that you're consuming still end up affecting your mood and self-esteem. I've had many friends tell me how going on Facebook too long ends up making themselves feel so bad about their own success in their own life. And they're not the only ones, and I'm sure you're not the only ones, because research has shown that yes, going on social media too long can lead to negative feelings about the self. This is because on social media, you have an oversaturation of everyone's achievements and successes without any context as to how they even got there. It's like everyone's a Google image stock photo of success and happiness. Your own progress, which you obviously have lots of context about, seems bleak in comparison. This type of virtual comparison leads to real feelings of an inadequacy and leaves you feeling even more pressured, as if we didn't have enough to begin with. Lastly, one of the most thought-provoking things I've learned and experienced is that maybe we shouldn't be trying to win at all. It's been shown that we can only have up to 150 successful, stable social relationships. And I know most of us have way more than that on Facebook alone. Recently, Asenna O'Neill, an 18-year-old Instagram celebrity, said no to social media, quit social media, and said goodbye to her 500,000 followers. Asenna made a video detailing her own experience with social media fame and how empty and meaningless it turned out to be. She grew up idolizing other girls and wanted to be as thin, pretty, famous as them. But once she got there, she details how she felt so empty and low about herself as a person. This demonstrates to me that even though we're able to have these accomplishments, that yeah, maybe we are able to get that follow count or have that nice hair and get those good grades and have everyone think we're the best, that those things don't really make us who we are. At the end of the day, they aren't what make our life meaningful or fulfilling. Nowadays, it's so important for us to have a vibrant social media presence, and we're expected to keep up in that realm. Many times, it feels as though we're taking away from having a good time in real life to make it seem like we're having a good time on Instagram. Just like Asenna, we might get too caught up in portraying a good life instead of actually leading one. Well, so far I've been talking to you about the negatives only of social media, and that's not fair because it's not inherently bad. I mean, I have my Twitter handle up in my interest line. What I'm telling you today is just to be things that I feel like I've learned over the time and things that you can be more aware and critical of. Personally, I'm also trying to figure out my own social media usage because I too feel the pressure to stay relevant and interesting online, which is, I can't believe that's a real pressure. It actually is. But I also don't want to get caught up in the hyper-positivity, almost like self-inflating culture. Some things I've learned that may be of use to you or just may give you some perspective next time you're going through your Facebook or Instagram are, well, first of all, recognize the messages you're seeing may not reflect the reality. This removes a lot of the pressure for us to then do well. If you realize everyone else has low points that you can't see, it makes it a lot easier for you to then have them. Also, be aware of the messages that we're sending out. We're all part of creating culture that's more open and inviting to all kinds of experiences and emotions. If we can be more real in our social media interactions, we're also then going to encourage others to follow suit. And of course, this would not be a social media talk if I did not encourage you all to go interact with the real world. But no, go MIA from social media. Really be critical about whether you want to post about the blue and black dress just because everyone else is posting about the blue and black dress. There's a lot of pressure for us to constantly be connected and keep up to date to everything. That is sometimes it's very freeing to be like, hey, I don't want to do this if you really just don't want to do it. We spend a lot of our time staying plugged in and keeping up to date with the newest trends that we might be missing out on our own lives. So it is exactly that, our own personal lives, with their joys, intricacies, and struggles that make us who we are. But we don't do justice to ourselves when we focus solely on the positive and hide the rest of the richness of our human experience. As this quote, which I found out is from Star Trek, right, beautifully puts it, it is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life. That's why I think, as important as it is for us to celebrate our highs, it is equally as important for us to acknowledge and talk about our lows. Because it is exactly what makes us human. That is the common thread of our humanity, the fact that we're all perfectly imperfect. Thank you.